Oh, hi. I didn't see you come in. I'm Dr. R.I.P. from the popular YouTube channel Dr. R.I.P. VHS. Well, as long as you're here, we might as well talk about a couple things about the channel. Now, it's been a couple months since I put everything back online after having to private them, and as of right now, my channel is absolutely copyright strike free. That's the good news. The bad news is that when I shut down my channel onto private, I went from getting about 300 subscribers a month down to... oh my gosh. Clearly I need to do something to jog myself back into the algorithm, so I thought, well, I post plenty of vacation and travel videos, why not post one of my own? So I realized that a lot of you don't live in the Pacific Northwest, so I thought it would be fun to show you what it's like around here. So grab yourself a drink, jump in the car with me, and take a ride through southeastern Oregon, northern Nevada, northern Utah, all the way to Colorado and back.
Always 2 steps ahead. This has been the greatest social experience.
I'm okay before you watch me cry like a little bitch video, and it's not working. But at the end of the day, life doesn't stop. I literally have to just
get into a little bit of storytime. We might as well, we're already sitting here, and maybe we can just kind of wrap this chapter up. I also have a book coming out that I
Ugh, why does everybody sit on the floor for this? As I mentioned, I recently took a road trip from my beautiful corner of the Northwest to the northwest corner of Colorado. Instead of taking the main interstate, I wanted to take an opportunity to go down through southern Oregon and northern Nevada and northern Utah, because there's not really any other opportunities to go there. And you'll see why. It started out in the Pacific Northwest that most people know, with lots of trees, through Silverton, Detroit Lake, through the Sisters Mountains, and into the central Oregon city of Bend. While in Bend, I stumbled upon this small, quaint, mom-and-pop type store called Blockbuster Video. The last Blockbuster on Earth, in fact, which was packed with a bunch of people milling around, checking out movies, and buying Blockbuster merch that is suspiciously similar, yet pales in comparison, to other VHS merch I've seen on the internet. From Bend, it was time for a 2-day drive just east of the middle of nowhere, southeastern Oregon, northern Nevada, and northern Utah. When I tell you the middle of nowhere, I really mean it. For people who've never been to this part of the United States, there's a shocking lack of anything anywhere. Like nothing. For days. It's kind of like a Hanna-Barbera cartoon where they use this 3 same unchanging cells of animation for the background, except it's 110 degrees outside and nobody can hear you crying. That first night I arrived in Battle Mountain, Nevada at the Big Chief Motel, which actually was surprisingly comfortable. The next day it was back in the car with a nice lumbar support shirt and back to the drive.
See what your eyes want to see.
But after another 8 hours, soon the vast wasteland of sagebrush turned into vast wastelands of salted, barren grounds. The Bonneville Salt Flats that lead into Salt Lake City, Utah, and its many, many interchanges. But after Salt Lake City, the geology and landscape started to change into more canyons and valleys and red rocks, until I was finally welcomed with crossed arms to Grand Junction, Colorado. There I got to spend time with my wonderful family, taking in the giant vistas of red rocks and canyons and valleys and the Colorado River. And that's when tragedy struck. On the second to last day, my whole family decided we wanted to kayak and raft down the Colorado River. What we didn't know was that the day would end in tragedy. We encountered a rough spot that, as you can see with this footage I took from somebody else's channel on YouTube, was severe. Our boats had become separated, some ahead, some behind. I was about 3/4 behind when I looked up and saw my sister-in-law, fully capable of managing herself on the water, a strong swimmer, an excellent kayaker, was thrown from her kayak. With the waves surrounding her, she clung to her boat as everybody else screamed, "Help her! Help her!" And I screamed, "Oh, shit! My phone was on that kayak!" But no one heard my screams. All the footage of my trip so far, all the video I had taken, all the pictures I took of my subscriber count going up and up, gone. You guys, I felt like I was dying.
Ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it because they would never understand.
But even though I didn't have my phone, it turns out my niece had her phone in a waterproof pouch around her neck, and she recorded the whole thing. So while I do have actual footage of my sister-in-law's boat tipping over with my phone on it, I must warn you, it is graphic. But it was too late. It was gone. Without my phone, I felt like I was dying. I didn't have anyone to blame because it wasn't her fault. It wasn't my fault. It wasn't anyone's fault. But it's hard to let it not affect you. I mean, your whole life is on those phones. So I gathered myself and I did the only reasonable thing to do, and that was to go to the Verizon store to get a new phone and then go to a basement party with a bunch of kids and get a prison-style tattoo. And after one more day of beautiful scenery and a lovely family, it was time to head home. This time up through Idaho and Oregon instead of across Nevada and Utah. And while the roads are much nicer and wider and more up-to-date, it's still pretty much the same scenery. Although on this route, you do go past Floy, Sulphur, and Burley Paul. There are a few more high plateaus in the distance, and there are a couple mountain passes that you wind through. But up through Utah, into Idaho, it all starts to look alike, and you can only look off into the distance and hope that beam of light soon takes you. I made my way up western Idaho to the tiny town of Bliss, Idaho, and I found this wonderful diner that served me my favorite food, piles of meat with gravy on top of it. After spending a night in the hotel / this guy's house, I was back on the road. Finally into eastern Oregon, past our cement factory, and through the blowing dust area. And that's when things start to change, because soon you get to the mighty Columbia River, the river that separates Washington and Oregon, and the very river Lewis and Clark used to visit Floy. The gorge itself was carved by the great Missoula floods, and is surrounded by golden fields and giant basalt rock formations. But that's not all. It also has a Stonehenge. Yes, that's right, Stonehenge, set in the middle of nowhere for some reason. But it has beautiful vistas and, well, a Stonehenge. So it's very much worth visiting if you've ever wanted to see a Stonehenge. Then once again, for the final leg, back into the Columbia Gorge, where you pass the mountains, the dams, and the mighty Multnomah Falls. The Columbia River Gorge is one of the most beautiful places on Earth, and I highly recommend it if you're ever in this area of the country. So there you have it, a little travelogue of what I did on my summer vacation. It was a great trip, even though I almost died from not having a phone. Like 6 hours. I've got some other channel news as well, but I think I'll save that for a video I'll do either next week or the week after, so stay tuned for that. Other than that, thanks for coming along on my trip, and I hope you guys have all had a great summer. And remember, take care of yourselves and each other. Oh, and be kind. Rewind. How am I supposed to get up from here? Oh, my knees!